Alright, we're back. It is Sunday, 11 December. I'm going to go back and we're going to come back to the evidence for the nitrates and the fingerprints on the rifle and everything, but I wanted to go back over something that I covered before, but this is another video that I found of Wesley Frazier. It's a great interview. It's at the the 6th floor museum. I believe it was recorded maybe 10 years ago or so, and but I got it from the Lone Gunman website, or excuse me, from their YouTube channel. Really good. I listened to the whole thing, and we're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to skip to certain points here, but it is incredible because Wesley Frazier makes some interesting statements that he never made before. I've never heard before. At least it wasn't in his statements to the FBI or the Warren Commission. Anyway, we're going to get into it here, and I'll stop it, at least recording, and I'll keep watching it until he says something that I think is interesting we ought to cover, and then I'll also record that. Alright, so hold on one second. Here we go.
I want to welcome our very special guest today, Buell Wesley Frazier, who, as I'm sure all of you know, was employed here at the Texas School Book Depository in 1963 and drove a fellow employee, Lee Harvey Oswald, to work several times, but particularly on the day of the assassination, November 22nd, 1963. Please join me in welcoming Buell to tell his story today. Buell, welcome back to the Texas School Book Depository. 50 years since you were first hired. You were hired in September of 1963, is that right?
That is correct.
You were hired as an order filler, and I'd like you to get us started today by telling us exactly what an order filler does and give us a sense of just how the Texas School Book Depository Company operated out of this building.
Okay. When I would report into work, I would go over, we had boxes, small boxes, about the size, not much larger than a sheet of typing paper, because the orders came off the printers up on the 2nd floor, and someone would take them off the printer and they would bring them downstairs. Mr. Shelley, my supervisor, would go over them, and then he would put them in the boxes according to the publishers, where it was Scotch Foreman, Southwestern, Grigg, whatever. And certain people did certain things. And what I did at Texas School Book Depository at that time, I was an order filler, and I would take the orders out of the box, and I would go wherever I needed to go in the building, anywhere from the basement to the 7th floor, which you're sitting in here today. This is the 7th floor. And the publications we had in here did not sell as well as the ones on the basement. The 1st floor, the 2nd floor was offices, 3rd was offices, 4th was part office and part warehouse for pallets of textbooks. And I would go wherever the order asked me. And by the way, we filled orders for 5 states. We could do more, but we did 5 states basically. It was Texas, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And if you have a child going to school here in Texas.
All right, so there you go. That's kind of a brief of what he was doing, and you notice he didn't say the 5th or 6th floor, but the same thing was going on the 5th or 6th floor. So it was just today they would have all books like that in one big, probably one level warehouse, okay? But this one, they had different levels, and they used these freight elevators that go up and down. So, to fill the order, they would have to go anywhere from the 1st to the 6th floor to find the books, okay? And then that's what you do. You give you a sheet, and you're basically hunting for books. Most books are in a designated area, so you could be anywhere up and down the line there looking for books. And since Oswald did exactly the same job as him, that's what Oswald would be doing. That's why you would have Oswald's fingerprints on boxes on the 6th floor, 5th floor, 4th floor, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. So nothing in particular, and of course everyone else's hands would be, fingerprints, palm prints would be on those boxes too. Alright, so we're going to stop here, and I'm going to keep watching it and see if I can find anything else that's related, and then we'll start up recording again.
And Oswald found out about the opening here at the Texas School Book Depository really because of you. Tell us that story.
Well, the way that happened was that my sister used to, the area there in Irving where they lived, some of the ladies used to get together several times a week, and they would have coffee and some type of coffee cake or whatever pastries they had. And they'd sit around and they'd talk about their day and what was going on in their lives and so forth. And I had been working quite a bit of overtime, and Miss Payne, they were at Miss Payne's house, and that's where Lee's wife, Marina, and their oldest child was living at the time being. And she said, she told all the ladies there, she said, Marina's husband is looking for work. He's out of work. And my sister said, well, my brother's been working a lot of overtime. She said, I'll ask him if they're still hiring. So she asked me one day when I come in, she said, are they doing any hiring at Texas School Books? I said, I don't know, but I said, I'll check and find out. Well, the very next day, I asked Mr. Shelley, I said, are we doing any hiring? I said, there's a woman living out with a family in Irving, and her husband's looking for work. And he said, well, let me check and see. Well, he checked with Mr. True, and it wasn't very long. He come back and he told me, he says, have the men come by and fill out applications. Well, Lee did come to Texas School Book. He filled out the application, and they hired him. And the first time that I met Lee was in front of Mr. Shelley's office. As a matter of fact, I was somewhere in the building. We had 5 speakers that they could talk to you or call you anywhere in the building, in the warehouse. And so I was doing something, and he said, I need you to come to my office. So I did that, and when I was approaching his office, Mr. Bill Shelley was standing there, and he had a man with him, and he walked up and he said, I went by that, and then I went by Wesley, and he said, Wesley, he said, this is Lee. He said, I want you to take him and teach him how to fill orders. And I said, okay. And so I told him what I was doing. I said, well, I'm currently working on an order I already started. I said, come and you can finish that with me. And I explained to him that down on the 1st floor that we had some bins, and I said, that's where we keep, if we need, say, like 3 copies, we go to the bins and get them on the 1st floor. But I said, if we need 2 cases, I said, we go upstairs and take them off the floor that they're being stored on. And Lee was a man that didn't talk a whole lot. But if you asked him something, he would answer you. He was a very dedicated person. He learned very quickly, and I like that, because that way, I've always, whatever I'm doing, if I'm teaching somebody something, I feed it to them as fast as they can absorb it. If you've ever been in a position where you do that, and you work with different people, you learn it very quickly. Some will learn it.
I just wanted to take notice here that you see how these stacks go up, these straight stacks. You see there's single straight stacks there. So to say that, Oswald built himself a wall for the sniper's nest is definitely misleading. If you look at these boxes here, and I'll show you what I mean. Alright, so there you go. So you see how they got these stacks here, and then they got these stacks here. And so usually they would do this, you put the similar books in these stacks here, okay? So then you know that this book is book A, and this book is book C, and this stack is book D and then E and then F and then G, like that. And then also when you get, new boxes to come in, you can just stack them besides that. You don't have to keep moving, everything around. So to say that he made a sniper's nest is kind of not right, not kind of a misuse of what's actually going on there. And see, they would make them like this also because, you may have two stacks. See, like this one would have had another stack here, and so that way they would also help support each other. So like these are some books here, and it's not really covering because I showed you pictures that you could see the guy's head if they were standing up here. So if Oswald's sitting on this box over here, you could easily see him. So it's not really a sniper's nest, okay? But anyway, we'll keep going and let Wesley Frazier tell you what's going on here.
But, and I taught him, and a lot of our conversation during the day was strictly business. He'd ask me, he'd come to me and says, well, I can't find this. And I'd say, well, what are you looking for? He'd show me, and I said, oh, well, that's over here. Well, let's say that he needed 2 copies. And we go to the bin, there wasn't any. It's out. I said, well, what we have to do is go upstairs and get a case and put it in the bins there, and you take your 2 cases and put over on the table if that's all that was on the order. And sometimes it was. You might have just 2 or 3 books on order, but they'd be shipped parcel post. And I would show him how to do that. And he, as I said earlier, he was he learned very quick, and I was very proud of that. And
you've told me in the past that some of the guys would make fun of Lee. And at one point, Lee came to you and asked you why the other guys are making fun of him. Tell us about that. What did you say? Okay,
well, this is the way I explain that to you. Let's say that we were out on the dock. Let's say that I was out on the dock, Lee was out on the dock, and somebody else. And something happened out on Houston Street, which is runs right by the building here. They witnessed something. Well, let's say that the other person, not Lee, he would be telling the group of people there about that. Let's say they were in the break room. And they would listen to what he'd say, and then Lee would tell them the same thing, but the language he would use, some of them did not comprehend what he was saying. And he asked me one day, matter of fact, he said something, and I was trying to put the word that I wasn't sure of. I was trying to figure out how it related to the sentence and what it actually meant. So he found me in the bins there, and one of the things we had was dictionaries, several different publishers and dictionaries. And I was looking up this word, and he asked me, he says, what are you doing? I said, well, you used this word in this sentence, and I wasn't sure what it meant. So I said, I'm looking it up and applying to the sentence you used, trying to understand what you were telling me. And he said, you're different than the other guys. And I said, really? And I said, how's that? He said, you never make fun of me. And I turned and I said, well, that comes from my upbringing. I said, my mother and my grandmother taught me to never make fun of someone.
And that tells you a lot about Oswald right there, just what he's saying. That's why he's taken the time to mention it. So Oswald was self-taught. He read constantly. I mean, if you look at his library list, it's amazing how many books he was going through. He was much, and just by the process of reading, okay, you're going to expand your vocabulary. And then you're going to start talking differently. And if you're working with, they're all like, all these guys are 18, 19, 20 years old. And you think about it, okay, it's 1963. Oswald was born in 1939. So he's 24. Most of these guys are younger than him. Wesley Frazier's 19. Wesley Frazier's 5 years younger than him, but is his supervisor, okay? So you got these, fairly uneducated guys making $1.25 an hour, and Oswald's using these bigger words, has obviously more higher caliber of vocabulary than they do. So the way people are, and this is wherever you work, I don't care where you work, especially when you work around a bunch of guys doing manual stuff, they're going to find somebody to pick on, to joke about around the card table in the lunchroom. Okay? And if you're not joining in with them, okay, you're going to become the target, especially if your language is a little better than them. It's a social way people have of bringing other people down to their level and down to their size. Right or wrong, that's just the way it is, okay? And so that shows you that, that's one thing he said about Oswald, would just stick to doing his job, because that's the way Oswald was taught in the Marines, okay? He's still a soldier. Oswald is still a soldier, even in this, book warehouse. He's got a job to do, an assignment to hunt down these books and put them together, and that's what he's doing. Just like all of his other assignments that he would do. Here, Lee, go do this. Here's your assignment today, go do that. This is his assignment. His assignment is to work in this warehouse. He's not sure why he's there, okay, but he's been told to go work at this place, okay? So he's there. And he's keeping quiet. He's listening, keeping an eye out. Maybe they told him there's some subversives there or something like that. Who knows what they told him? Whoever is running Lee is telling him to keep an open ear and eye out for anything, okay, and then report back to us. That's how I think they got him there. That's how I think they tricked him into believing he was still on a mission when it was nothing, okay? So that's what he's believing he's doing. And so you can tell, and again, you can tell he's a soldier because he's being quiet, he's listening, he's sticking to the job at hand. If he had been this radical, wild-eyed, crazy, mentally ill, Marxist revolutionary, don't you think he'd be standing out on Houston and Elm passing out flyers to employees saying, hey, we need to put a union here, they need to pay us more, the bosses are getting rich while we're on these starving wages. Fight for the people and support communism, support the workers. Don't you think he'd be doing that like he was in the streets of New Orleans? Don't you think it's odd that he's the opposite of what he was in New Orleans? Very strange. When you read the depositions and the Warren Commission testimony of all these white Russians that he had befriended, they all talked about how he talked about the American system was bad and how communism and the Cuban Revolution and Marxism was better. He was an advocate, like I said. But in the Texas School Book Depository, he doesn't even advocate to the guy he rides, home with on the weekends. Anyway, we'll keep going. So what I'm trying to say is that Oswald, I have no absolute proof he was, working as an informant for anybody, but if he was, that's how he would act. Discipline, sticking to the job at hand, not BSing with other people and becoming part of their problems, but keeping an open ear, okay, and then reporting back.
And I said, if you stop and think about it, I said, sometimes people, they want to divert the attention to someone else other than themselves.
There you go.
But Lee and I had a very good working relationship.
It wasn't long before you were offering him rides home on Fridays. Tell us about how that got started.
Well, the way that happened was the first day that he came to work. It was I don't remember what day it was that he came to work, but anyway, when I found out that his wife was living with Miss Payne in Irving, which was right down the street from me, I told him, I said, Lee, anytime you want to go out and visit your family, I said, "You're welcome to ride." I said, "You can go with me anytime." And then a few minutes later, he said, "If it's all right with you," he said, "I'd like to ride out with you on Friday afternoon." And he living in Dallas in a rooming house, and his wife living over with Miss Payne in Irving. I thought about that briefly, but I said, "Well, I don't know what the reason that is, but that's none of my business. If he wants to tell me, fine. If he doesn't, fine. It didn't bother me." So that's the way he started riding with me. He'd ride out with me on Friday afternoon, and then he would come back with me on Monday morning. Well, I know people probably want to know, but when you and he would be going out to Irving, we never stopped to have a beer or a soft drink or anything. We just went straight from work out to the house where his wife was staying, with Miss Payne. And the same thing when we come to work on Monday mornings. But all that time between Friday afternoon and Monday morning, I never did see Lee. We never did anything together. Now, you may read things that they said, well, Lee and I was at the rifle range together and all kind of stories. But I'm telling you right now, that's totally false. We never did anything.
So if Lee started there, like, you know, the beginning of October, like they say, and, you know, that's a month and a half, 6 weeks. So that's 6 times they would have ridden together, at least back from work. You know, you mean to tell me that Wesley Frazier, Buell Wesley Frazier, good old country boy, didn't say, "Hey, Lee, you know, I understand your wife's living with Mrs. Payne. What's going on? How come? Where do you live at? And how come that y'all, you know, how come you not living together? And what's your place like? And you know, and are you guys having problems or something? Because you seem to get along with her and their children. You know, and the children in the neighborhood seem to like you. So, don't you think that's kind of odd? And and your wife's from Russia? Well, how did you meet your wife? Oh, you lived in Russia? Oh, wow. You know, he's 19 years old. He's not going to have a curious bone in his body. Well, I never been out of Texas, much less going to Russia. So, what's Russia like? Isn't it cold over there? Don't they have them commies over there? Weren't you afraid? I mean, come on. You gotta, you know, any normal person would be asking these questions. Does your wife speak Russian? Y'all speak Russian together when y'all together? Or does she speak any English? You think you can teach me some Russian words? You know? I mean, I don't buy it. But maybe that's the way Wesley Frazier was. Maybe he minded his business and Lee minded his business, and they both sat in the truck for 15, 20 minutes, riding home and riding to work, you know, and not saying a word and staring out the windows and saying, "Oh, looks like it's going to rain today," and, "Oh, you really like them kids, you got a baby on the way. Oh, good, that's good. The kids really like you in the neighborhood, and yeah, it's going to rain quite a bit on Friday, and then it should stop just in time, you know, before noon, so you can shoot the president." I mean, come on, Wesley. It sounds to me like he's covering his ass, okay? But anyway, I don't know. Who knows? It's just very strange.
And one reason I never did anything with him was that I said, well, here he is all week long, living over there in Dallas at a rooming house. And he comes over to see his wife and his child. And I said, he probably has lots of things he wants to do with them. And being a young 19-year-old boy, I could be a 19-year-old boy on the weekend. During the day, I worked with a lot of guys that was 30, 33 years old, something like that. So I had to be as old. I couldn't be as a kid. I had to be an adult, and I had to be focused. And
Lee was pretty good with kids in the neighborhood, right?
Yes, he was. And the way I found out about that was that my sister, Miss Lady Mae Fraser Randall, she and her husband, they had 3 little girls, Diana, Patricia and Carolyn. Well, hearing little kids talk around the table and stuff like that, I learned that Lee would play games for the children in the neighborhood. And they always like to go up, they always look forward to going up and playing around the big oak tree, which, by the way, is still there today. You go over to Irving to the paint house, the old paint house, that big oak tree is still there. And they played many a games under the shade of that big tree, around the tree. And my little nieces, just hearing them talk, they thought Lee was a great man. He said he was always nice, and kind of asked him, I said, you have a good time playing with him? He said, oh yes. And he said, his daughter said, we play games. And I said,
and here's another thing. Two more things. Okay? So we're talking very ultra-conservative, ultra right-wing conservative Dallas, Texas in the early 1960s. Okay? And here's two things. Don't you think Mr. Truly would have asked him, so you're 20, wait, what was he, 24? Yeah, you're 24. What have you been doing? Oh, I was in the Marines. What did you do in the Marines? I was a radar operator. Well, when did you go in the Marines? Oh, I went in when I was 17. When did you get out? 3 years later, 1959. Well, what have you been doing from 1959 to 1963, the last 4 years? That's what, and he would be also probably looking at an application. Well, you don't have any employment here from the Marines to when you got to Dallas in 1962. What were you doing from 1959 to 1962? I was working in a television factory. Oh, really? Well, there's no television factories here in Dallas. Were you working at a state? Where are you working at? In Russia. In Russia? And Mr. Truly was a very right-wing conservative. I think he was even a member of the Birch Society, if I remember. What were you doing in Russia? Oh, I defected to Russia. You can imagine the conversation would go downhill from there. You defected to Russia? Why would you defect to Russia? Oh, because I'm a Marxist communist and I don't like the American system. Well, why the hell did you come back? Oh, because I didn't like Russia either. I mean, how does that conversation play out? Oh, okay, well, you're Marxist communist and you defected to Russia, and betrayed your country, but you still came back, but that's okay, I'll give you a job anyway. We'll live and let live, young stupid kids, right? No, he'd be, as soon as he said, I went to Russia and lived in Russia, get the fuck out of my office, you fucking commie. If I see your ass on the street or around here, I'm going to beat your ass, is what he would say. Mr. Truly was an ultra-conservative Republican, okay? That's how that conversation would have happened. Lee would not be working at the Texas School Book Depository, believe me. Okay? I mean, are we to believe that Mr. Truly was a stupid fucking idiot that didn't ask questions? Oh, you're from Texas, you were in the Marines, you're 24? Okay, yeah, no problem. Oh, you weren't doing anything from when you got out of the Marines till now? Okay. Oh, you got fired from your last 2 jobs you had here, and you got fired from your job in New Orleans? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, when can you start? I mean, come on, folks. The only reason Mr. Truly would hire him, okay, is because somebody in we'll call it the organization, for lack of a better word, and we'll say I'm going to say from now on the organization, and the organization will be the group of right-wing, ultra-conservative people in the FBI, military, CIA, right-wing Cubans, and right-wing oil men in Texas, and like-minded people. The organization told him, hey, hire this guy, don't ask any questions, just hire him, we need him to be working in that building. Okay. Now, Mrs. Payne innocently says that she found out about the job through Wesley Frazier's sister at this card game. Okay? I don't believe that for one fucking minute. Okay? And you can see that, you know, Oswald even went to the, I believe, the Employment Commission, and they actually gave him some referrals there. But he was encouraged by Mrs. Payne to go to the Texas School Book Depository, okay, and apply there. That means the organization somehow influenced Mrs. Payne to influence Oswald to go to the School Book Depository. Don't you think it's strange, okay, that Mrs. Payne, who is married to Michael Payne, they both own the house there, all of a sudden now is single, okay? And let's not forget how Mrs. Payne met the Oswalds. She met the Oswalds through Mr. de Mornche, who was also a CIA asset contact, civilian contact. It's like, and then he went off to Haiti. It's like he passed them off, okay? Watch this guy Oswald, you're going to be his handler, okay? And then he passed Oswald off to the Paynes, okay? And, you know, Mrs. Payne drove Marina down to New Orleans, and then Mrs. Payne, you know, that was like in May, and then in August of September 1963, she went to D.C. on a trip, visited some relatives, and swung back through the South and picked up Marina from New Orleans and brought her back to Dallas. How convenient, okay? She just broke up with her husband, and he is out of the house, but Mr. Payne would come by the house frequently, even mentions having to step over Oswald on the weekends because he was laying on the carpet watching the football games. How convenient, you know. Mr. Payne was, you know, involved with the Bell helicopters. Don't you think it's kind of odd that Mrs. Payne didn't have to work or get any money? I guess she was getting money from her husband. He allowed her to stay in the house, and he goes off and rents an apartment. Don't you think that's kind of odd? And then, yeah, let's just let this Russian lady, who's the husband of this communist defector, okay, come live with my wife and their children. Doesn't that sound strange? I mean, everywhere Oswald goes, he's being handled by these ultra right-wing people, okay? He's working at Jagger Childs. He's in New Orleans, working at the Riley Coffee Company and all the. That's what, you know. Mr. Riley's one of the most right-wing persons. It's members of the same organization as Sean Bannister in New Orleans. Then he comes back. His wife's living with these, you know, CIA assets. You know, it wouldn't be the first time that a Quaker was used by the CIA. Let's not forget Nixon was a Quaker who bombed the hell out of Vietnam. Don't you think it's strange that this communist, Marxist communist that loved Russia and loved Cuba and hated America was being cared for and taken care of by these groups? It was like he hopped from one right-wing handler to the next. Okay? It's just too much to swallow. He never mentioned communism or never mentioned Marxism to this pacifist, you know, this pacifist Quaker. Well, if you believe in the, you know, equality of man and against slavery, you should be against the capitalist system, like he tried to preach to all those other white Russians. Okay? Don't you think it's strange? I mean, I'll put it to you another way. If you took a white skinhead neo-Nazi and put him in Moscow and had him being handled by all these devoted communists, okay, were all, you know, relatives or nieces or associated with the KGB, that would stick out. Wouldn't you think that was weird? That one of this neo-Nazi's friends was a man associated with the KGB and hands him off to another person who's been associated with the KGB? Or just flip it. It's the same fucking thing. Okay? Anyway. Regardless of that, don't you think somebody somewhere in Dallas, in the Texas School Book Depository in Jaeger Childs, in the neighborhood in Irving, okay, knowing that his wife is a Russian from Russia, would put two and two together and say, and it had only been less than a year and a half since they came back from Russia, wouldn't you think they'd put two and two together and say, hey, she's from Russia, isn't that Marine that defected to Russia and threatened to sell out his secrets to the Russians and lived in Russia for like 2 or 3 years? Isn't that the same Oswald? But nobody does. You know, I'm not going to work with this goddamn communist. He just got busted 3 months ago in New Orleans for fighting and passing out pro-Russia and pro-Cuban literature just in New Orleans. And you expect me to work with this asshole? Oh, you think it's fucking strange? Okay, I mean, I'll reword it and put it a different way. Okay? You remember the guy who got caught in Afghanistan? I don't remember his name, but you remember that guy who's the American that converted to Islam, went to Yemen, was studying in Saudi Arabia or Yemen, and then ended up in Afghanistan and was fighting American soldiers over there? And then he got captured, and then they brought him back to the United States. They sent him to jail and stuff like that. Now, just imagine if he got out of jail after his sentence, because it's been almost been over 20 years. So he's out filling out applications like Oswald, going around all over town saying Dallas, we'll call him, you know, Taliban Tim or something like that. He's going all over Dallas filling out applications to work. He goes to the Texas School Book Depository to apply for a job, and they say, oh, fill out this application. And they're going over there, and they're like, well, wait a minute, you're 39, and the last job you have written down here was when you were like 19, working at a 7-Eleven. What did you do the last 20 years? Oh, I went off to study at the seminary. A seminary? Yeah. Where? Oh, out of the country. Really? Where out of the country? In Yemen. Yemen? Oh, I converted to Islam. Islam? Why would you do something like that? Oh, the brotherhood of unity of man and all this kind of bullshit. And now we're going to have to do a background check. And when we pulled your background check, it says you were in prison at the Fed Max prison for like 15 years. Why were you in prison? Oh, I had gone to Afghanistan to join the jihad to fight against American soldiers and kill them there. And I got captured, and then I got brought back to the United States, tried, and sent to prison. You what? Yeah. You think you get that job? Fucking no way. This is no different. Instead of communism, you just replace communists in Russia with Islam in Afghanistan. Okay? There's no way Mr. Truly wouldn't have gone down that fucking road and thrown Oswald out into the street and told his ass if he ever came back he'd beat the crap out of him. Unless he was told not to. I mean, think about it, folks. Come on. Are we really that... They really think we're that fucking stupid that some communist that defected to the the Soviet Union and betrayed his country is going to come back and work for Jaeger Childs, a defense contractor, okay, with now no problem, and then go work for Riley Coffee Company, the guy who's like right wing of Attila the Hun, okay, a block from Bannister's house, who's hunting communists. It's funny that not Bannister's office. Bannister's looking all over New Orleans for communists, but can't seem to find Oswald, who's working a block from him and has an office upstairs in his own fucking building and is passing out flyers 3 blocks away. Come on. Give us a fucking break. The CIA is writing memos about Oswald in Russia and Mexico City, and the FBI is interviewing Oswald because he made the newspapers and he made the TV, but they're not keeping track of Oswald, even though they're only 2 blocks away from where Oswald is working. Around Lafayette Square right there. I mean, come on, folks. It's just too much to believe. Okay? And then, okay, we'll do it this way, and then Oswald's playing with all these people's children, with his one daughter and their children. Okay? Let's take that same situation and flip it around. You got Taliban Tim. He comes to your neighborhood and he's playing with his daughter in your neighborhood and your children. And then somebody reads the newspaper. Oh my God, that's the same guy that was in Afghanistan that was trying to kill American soldiers, and now he's over there playing with our children? Can you imagine? Can you imagine what would happen to Taliban Tim in Dallas, Texas? I mean, come on, folks. How much of this bullshit are we supposed to follow? Oswald was handled at every place, everywhere he went, by the right wing. There was no communists. There was no Friends of Russia or Friends of Cuba group standing up to take care of Oswald because they knew he wasn't a real communist. Okay, that's why. And Oswald knew he wasn't a real communist, and the right wing people knew he wasn't a real communist. Okay. I mean, come on. Again, I talk about Taliban Tim. Taliban Tim would not be allowed to work at the Texas School Book Depository because he tried to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan. They beat the shit out of him in the building, and then they throw him out the front door down the stairs. Okay? Come on. Wesley Frazier. Oh, what? Your wife's from Afghanistan? Are you a Muslim? Oh, you are? Okay. What did you do in Afghanistan? Oh, I killed I fought American soldiers. Wesley Frazier, who went on to join the U.S. Army? Come on. Get the fuck out of my car. Get out of my truck. Walk your ass home. And get your, and then, I mean, Michael Payne, defense contractor, right-wing American. Oh, you brought your Muslim wife and your Muslim daughter to my house and living in my house rent-free, and you tried to kill American soldiers? Get that goddamn, Muslim towelhead out of my fucking house. That's exactly what they'd say. And, Oswald's daughter and Oswald are playing with the kids in the neighborhood, you know, come on. You know what would happen. Get that damn Muslim away from my kids. You know. It's exactly what would happen. But he's a communist. You know. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. He betrayed America. And here's the news article. But it's okay. He can still play with and she's a commie Russian. But they can still play with my kids. Yeah, no problem. Come on. Really? I don't think so. I mean, how much of this shit are we supposed to buy? And Wesley Frazier, come on, man. Oh, it's really nice and sunny today. On Friday the 22nd, they said it's supposed to rain a little bit. But it's going to clear up in time before noon. So you can use that package, that 2-foot package in the back of the truck to go shoot the president. It'd be a good day to shoot the president. Come on. Come on, Wesley. You ain't no goddamn country bumpkin. Not as stupid as you look. Maybe you are. I don't know.
So I just let it go at that. I never did really try to pinpoint them about what was so great, but you have to stop and think about a child. You know, a child can look at someone, and you and I can look at someone, and we might have a hard time trying to figure out where they are, who they are. But a child can look and tell you, you're a nice person, or that person's mean.
So,
well, when a child tells you that, you better listen.
So when Wesley Frazier is telling you, is that a child is smarter than him? Is that what he's saying?
Lee deviated from that routine of riding with you on Fridays the week of the assassination. Instead, he asked to ride with you that Thursday, November 21st.
Yes, he did. He came up to me on Thursday and he said, "Can I ride home with you today?" I said, "Sure." I said, "You know, you're always welcome to ride." And a few minutes later...
We're also going to read testimony from 2 of Texas School Book Depository workers that said they saw Wesley Frazier and Oswald arrive and leave nearly every day. And if you look on the map, it's not much of a jump for Wesley Frazier to go from Irving. He's got to pass by Oswald almost to his rooming house to get to downtown. Every day. Almost every day, they said. They would ride back and forth together. Anyway.
I was looking at this order and I was looking at the date. I said, today's not Friday. Today's Thursday. So when I ran into him a few minutes later, I said, "Are you confused?" I said, "Today's not Friday, today's Thursday." And he says, "I know that." But he says, "I'm going to go out to I'd like to ride out with you because I want to get some curtain rods to put some curtains up in my apartment." Well, how little did I know, never have been over to his rooming house there on Beckley. He already had curtain rods and curtains hanging in his room. He read it, but I didn't know that. So I said, "Fine." And so the next morning, on Friday, he got up and he walked down the street, which was about a half a block, and he had this package with him. My sister was at the sink doing something. I don't know what she was doing. Might have been washing dishes or because the stove wasn't too far from there. And so she did see him with a package. And he put the package in my backseat of my car. Because back then, we didn't lock cars. You didn't have to lock cars. People didn't bother anything.
So, one thing he didn't mention here is that his sister was startled because Oswald came and stuck his head, not head, but was looking through the kitchen window when she went to the sink. And the reason why Oswald did that, he was trying to make sure that Wesley Frazier hadn't left already, okay, or where Wesley Frazier was, because Oswald, even though he was supposed to assassinate the president, had gotten up 15 minutes late that day. Pretty strange. If you're going to assassinate the president, you think you'd be on time, right? Anyway.
We'll have time to change.
This was unusual for Oswald to do this. He had never walked over to your house and looked in your kitchen window before, had he?
No, he never had. That was very unusual because he put the package in the back seat of the car, and then he walked to the kitchen window there and looked in. Why do you look in the window? Was he looking to see if anyone had seen him? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But anyway, my mother was sitting at the table with my little nieces and I, and she startled her. She says, "Who is that man looking in the window?" Well, I looked up, and I said, "That's Lee. That's the man that will be riding to work with me." I said, "He works with me at Texas School Bus." So I got up from the table and I went to the back door, and Lee was standing there on the carport. And I told him, I said, "I'm just about through eating my breakfast." I said, "Let me finish that and I'll brush my teeth and I'll be right on out and we'll take off for work." And that's exactly what we did.
Now, you took a look at the package in the back seat. You asked him what it was. What did he say?
Well, as I was sitting down in the car, I glanced over my shoulder and I saw this package. And I asked him, I said, "Lee," I said, "what's in the package?" He said, "You remember?" He said, "It's curtain rods." I said, "Oh, that's right." I said, "You told me you're going to be taking some curtain rods." So nothing was ever said about the package anymore. And we rode on into work together. And that morning it was very cloudy, overcast, and it was misty.
All right, so curtain rods. Let's take a look. So you see here, there's the room right there. At least, I don't know when this picture was taken, but that looks to be the room there. There's this bed, and it looks like they have it made up the same way, but you can see here, there's curtains. You can see here, in the modern one, there's no curtains. This one, they say, was taken shortly after the assassination, and it's different. The room's different. You see how behind here there's some kind of curtain of some kind. See, there's nothing there. This one, you can see these curtains here, okay, but there's nothing in the windows. When you look here, they have curtains and level-or blinds. Another one here, you see, they've got a thin curtain and level-or blinds. So somebody, it says this was taken on 11/22. So I'm not sure if someone put those level-or blinds in, or they were there at the same time Oswald was renting that place. See, there's Oswald in that shirt. This is the same shirt. It's interesting that Oswald, okay, comes home, grabs his pistol, puts on a jacket, even though the landlady doesn't say, I don't know, we'll have to see about what she says about a jacket there. Let's see. Any more pictures of that? No. So whether it was curtain rods or it was something else, who knows? Maybe Oswald was told to bring the rifle and leave it upstairs. Who knows? Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, definitely leveler blinds there. This is completely different. So that couldn't have been right after the assassination. Alright, let me save this. Now, this one's kind of interesting. So it says, these are the possessions of Lee Oswald found at 1026 North Beckley. Okay, he's got pants, pajamas, a shirt, binoculars, a camera casing. There's his personal hygiene items. These are flashcards for Russian. Some more Russian books. He's got sunglasses. There's some watches. And he's got gloves. And a bag. So, don't you think if Oswald was going to fire with this rifle, he would take his gloves? That's what I would do. If I was going to assassinate the president and leave the rifle there. Again, here's a picture of the room. There's the curtains, I guess. There's another interesting picture. He has a driver's manual. He's got binoculars. Alright, very interesting. Okay, we're almost finished here. Let's see if I can find anything else. I'm still looking for more pictures of this room. It's my understanding that Mrs. Bledsoe became very paranoid and didn't live very long after this, I believe. Again, Oswald's the luckiest man in the world if you think about it. Anyway. Alright, so we're almost done here. Just watch a few more minutes of Wesley and then we'll close up.
And back then cars didn't have intermittent wipers, so I had to turn the wiper on. And the drops were so small, they were just like the size of like a straight pin or a needle. And I had to do that several times, and I said, talking to Lee, I said, I wish it'd rain or stop this. And we had the radio on, always had the radio on.
Was anything mentioned about the fact that the president was going to be coming by your building that day?
No, not anything. And we didn't do a lot of talking that morning going to work. It was just like any other morning. He rode to work with me. I rode out to Irving with me. Lee just wasn't a big talker,
we're looking at a picture here that shows roughly where you parked. This area has changed quite a bit, but you parked your car over here north of the building. Most people don't know this, but the Texas School Book Depository had another warehouse space north of the building called the State Building.
That is correct.
And that's where they typically stored textbooks that would go out to schools in the state of Texas?
No. If you look inside...
Alright, so you see here's the Texas School Book Depository. There's the railroad yard. And north of that is the State Building. Now Oswald could have easily been assigned to work over there that day or any other day. And also just think about it. If Oswald was planning to shoot the president and he went in that day and Mr. Truly said, hey Oswald, we need you over at the state building. Okay, what was he going to do? Say no? And then he would have missed shooting the president. Anyway, like I said, he's the luckiest son of a bitch ever. Anyway, so we're going to stop right here, and then we'll pick up with the rest of this tomorrow, and we'll keep going down this and get back on track on our timeline. But I'm just finding all kinds of interesting things, and this, again, tomorrow I'm going to show you where he makes this statement that is so incredible. He didn't make it in any of his other statements, but on here he does. And it just, I almost fell back out of my chair when I heard him say it. Alright, take care, and we'll see you tomorrow.